Hey there, YouTubers. It's still February 5th. I just finished a video on my collaboration with Steve Waterman. I wanted to keep it to under 5 minutes, and then I wandered off into talking about open source and CompuServe and POV Ray, so I did not succeed to keep it under 5 minutes, but I think I did pretty well. Here I'm going to wander a little bit more, like I'm starting out with this pretty picture of pylons in the dusk. Um, as you know, if you're into electrical grid stuff, as we are in World Game, those things are called pylons, and they're odd looking and a little bit scary, I think, to some people. And then how much voltage they're holding in those arms, and how far, all that kind of mapping of global grids we'll get into another time. I think that's what we're talking about here, maybe. Anyway, let's talk a little more about this website. I've been with GoDaddy almost all morning because there's clearly more going on. It might be a denial of service, I don't know, but I let them talk me into a security package. We'll see if that helps. The thing is, I was hacked. Like, WordPress is not super secure, and I found some ads at the bottom of this website, so I'm not just freaking out, paranoid with no evidence, right? I've seen that WordPress sites aren't the most secure. Now, in the old days, this was all static HTML, and WordPress hadn't been invented yet. WordPress is a thick PHP framework for holding web content. It's sophisticated, and I'm not preaching against it in any way. I have no issues with WordPress other than the current setup that I have on GoDaddy is not 100% secure by any means. So, and I admit that. I admit that here on YouTube. I know it's a problem. So, onward anyway, nevertheless, it's working okay since I had my extended discussion with GoDaddy this morning. And I wanted to look at the geodesic domes a little more in this video. I was working on the history. We looked at that. Let's go to geometry, prototypes, providers. So the geometry, Fuller was not the only one interested in, like, underwater life has this look of radiolaria, this kind of geodesic sphere is a natural thing. Like, carbon-60 hadn't been discovered yet, but definitely in searching about first principles, you're going to come to subdividing the sphere probably, and this Java applet is not real now. In the heyday, the golden age of Java, this was actually an embedded applet that I actually wrote myself. I learned enough Java to do this kind of stuff. And that was 3D graphics on the inside. You can twirl this around, as I recall, and see the whole sphere. I think that's right, but now it's just a picture. I can't remember. I can't prove that. I doubt anywhere do I have the source code anymore. It says based on a program by Joe Clinton, so clearly I piggybacked on something, and it also says converted from Perl version by David Bolt. So my memory fades. Obviously, I leaned heavily on some sources when I converted this to Java. And then where we really went with Java was Gerald de Jong was part of our clique, you could say, and he was showing us the real possibilities there with Struck and later, what do you call it? Tensegrity-based software, elastic interval geometry, which I'm not getting into here, but I do want to get into the vocabulary that Fuller evolved when he was doing his geodesic dome studies. He lit upon frequency as the English word he wanted to underline, more than wavelength or anything like that. The frequency is the number of intervals when you're looking at one of these sphere packings. How many spheres do you see along an edge? In the case of an icosahedron, which turns into a sphere pretty easily, it's not hard to count from the center of one pentagon to the center of a neighboring pentagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, counting the intervals, and we get 5 frequency. So, and there's a jitterbug transformation for you there. Let's go on to looking at the future a bit. Now, again, this is from the 1990s. This is a beautiful picture, I think, of a model of Old Man River City. Let's see if I can zoom in on that in a browser way. So this is a gigantic stadium-shaped city. It looks like a stadium, but a real stadium, like a Olympic-sized stadium, would fit inside this quite a few times. In fact, there is in the final design a stadium or two at the center, which is oval shaped, but it just fits right in there, and it's a giant dome over the whole thing. Now, we don't build domes this big on planet Earth at this point, and we don't really know if we will ever or if we can. These are open questions in engineering. And to this day, here we are in 2019, I'm not super impressed, by how people took off with the dome and tried really big ones right away. Like they wanted to see how big they could go with the dome. Did they care? Actually, no. I mean, we had other priorities, I guess. So I would look forward to a civilization where experimenting around the dome is done more. In the meantime, this did take place in Cornwall in England. They constructed a vast network of pillow domes, which is a concept J. Baldwin was also very into, permeable to light, full spectrum. And here is where you can have your garden and your structures. In other words, you can build freestanding structures, but not as solidly as you would have to if they're to bear the load of weather. You're already inside a dome, so you might as well just kind of go with a theater prop kind of, I won't say chintzy, but you don't have to put as much load bearing into it if you're already protected inside the dome. The dome is doing the hard work of keeping you inside. There's kind of a funny picture of that. If we go to my Martian Math website, um, let's see, the way I get there these days is I link through my more recent Reed College course that I did for Saturday Academy, middle school aimed at the age ranking. Now, don't have to think of it as an age-based thing, but simple introduction, not requiring higher math or anything. See the house inside this bubble, which is kind of a parody of life on Mars. Here's the guy coming home like a 50s dude. He's got his wife in the porch, airlock. He's not wearing any kind of, it's kind of funny, right? This is from the cover of a science fiction magazine, and I encourage, Martian Math is all about science fiction. It's talking about, how we get closer to reality once we've started down that road of science fiction. How do we go in the direction of maybe avoiding it, right? Because there's dystopias as much as utopias in science fiction land. So that's the Martian Math thing. Let's just wind up back at the domes. And I'm basically touring a website that is kind of not clear how long it's going to last, right? So the theme of the last few YouTubes are, let's check out Kirbys' old website and maybe be commending it to the history books at this point. I ran this by Applewhite in the 90s. Should we do, like I was trying to organize a follow-up to J. Baldwin's Bucky Works called Brainstorming on Bucky Works. And Ed liked it a lot in one dimension, but he wasn't too keen on the anthology aspect. And I agree that a subtitle, The Anthology, that's kind of lame. I just didn't see myself writing all this, but maybe that was maybe that was being lazy. I should have just written it myself. But I've tended to aim my output to the web because I depend on hypertext for researchers to have something to follow easily by clicking, and you don't get that inside of a book, obviously. So I haven't focused on trying to write a book because I want to take advantage of the technology here. It's that simple. There is a page not found error. I I may want to try to fix. I'll end up with providers. I spent a lot of the 90s serving as a resource for commercial providers of domes. And whether these are all up to date or not, I would have no way of knowing because I don't go back here now and try to test them all. Like this domain has obviously disappeared. How about Domes International? I give as the last no I give as the last column uh, of my chart here when I last checked it. So far I'm batting 0 for 0. How about Geotech Systems? Looks like we're not going to have that either. So domes providers come and go, and it looks like they mostly go. I know Geometrica is gone. So like I say, I'm not super impressed by what happens after Fuller dies in the dome department. It's not because they leak or have any real technical issues that we can't solve. It's just our priorities there's a good one. Our priorities have been elsewhere for the most part, and I question our priorities for that reason. It's like, why aren't we testing giant domes in the desert somewhere? You don't even have to build Old Man River City, although that too is something that might make sense. All right, talk to you soon. I hope you have a good winter. It's actually snowing outside here in Portland. First time this winter so far that we've had any snow at all. It's been pretty mild here. All right, talk to you later.